again and welcome back to the channel. My name is Annie and this is my creative detour. Today I thought I would do a mixed media composition. So it's a little bit of a different project for me today. I love doing storytelling, as some of you would know, and I love doing collage and mixed media. So I thought that I would do a little bit of a story on a artwork today. So I'll get set up so I don't get paint everywhere on the desk, and I'll show you what I've got. Now, I have pulled out a bit of a collection of bits and pieces out of my scrap box, and I've also pulled out some Tim Holtz ideology collage paper, and this one is called Document, and I'm going to put a background down using some bits and pieces of ledger or invoice and things like that. And I have a little bit of a story where I have created a few sentiments that are going to go together at the end to tell the story. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a background. Now, as you can see, I've pulled out quite a few different bits and pieces of paper to build the background, and then I'm going to do some different textures and stamping on it. But this is our hero piece, and I found this image in a magazine, and it's of two lovely ladies in their work dresses, so they look like that they're shop girls, and hence the point of the invoices. And this one here is whispering a secret to the other one. So that's the story that I've honed in on, and I've created a secret that they're going to be sharing, and I'll put that secret on at the end. So let's put the ladies to the side so we don't get them damaged. And I have a butterfly here which ends up being part of the story at the end as well. So we'll start by building the base, and I may speed up the camera in some spots on this video just so that it doesn't go too long, and I'm going to have some drying time in between, so there'll be times when I'll have to let the work dry and I'll just pause the video. But we'll see how it goes, and hopefully it won't be too long. I'll edit quite a bit out of it, but let's have a bit of a play and some fun together. Okay, so I've got some rice paper glue that I'm going to use, and we'll start by sticking down the background, and I'm just going to collage this down. The papers that I've got here are a collection of different things, some from Collage Soup from the Botany Digital, and they're different types of paper actually, but I'm okay with that. You know, it's a collage, so it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag of how it goes together. And I am going to put a little bit of colour down. Now let's just see if that is going to work with the ladies' heads and body. Yes, I wanted a little bit of colour behind their head. And then the next bit is just building up the perimeter. So it's not rocket science, but I am sticking to a theme. So the theme is invoices, dockets, ledger, that sort of thing, just so that we're getting that shop girl sort of department store feeling. Now you can see that I'm working on a large format. Now this page is actually an A4 size. I'm using Bristol Smooth cardstock as my base, mainly because that's what I've got. Now I also have some bits of ledger that I'm going to put down as well. Okay, so I have that covered with ledger and a little bit of blocking. I'm going to put some tissue paper on it now that has sort of invoices on it, and some of that background will shine through, which is nice. It'll give a little bit of depth to it. So we'll pop on some of this Tim Holtz collage paper. And some of it will go a little bit wrinkly, and I'm okay about that. It doesn't worry me if it has a few bubbles and bumps and things in it. It gives it a bit of texture. Now I've got this piece here. I'd like that to sit behind her shoulder actually, so let's just align that. I'll stick that there, and I can now do around that a little bit. Yes, so I hope that you're all having a great week. I worked yesterday and play day today, which is nice. I'm on school duty, drop off and pick up school duty today. So my grandchildren came and woke me up. I had my alarm set, but I put the snooze on, and then the snooze went off. I must have not pushed snooze again. I think I must have pushed stop. Next minute I had my granddaughter saying, "Nonna, got to take us to school." And the reason that they were unsupervised almost was because they live upstairs. So we all live in a big house together. So they're used to, the environment, and they know to come and get me if they need assistance or help with something. But they were upstairs watching some ABC Kids, I think. And then my grandson, he knows how to tell time, and so he knows to come and check on me at 7:30 to make sure that I'm awake, which I wasn't. So I had to quickly get up and get dressed, and I said, "Are we driving or walking?" And they went, No, we want to walk today. I went, "Oh, okay." So we're up and at 'em, even though my body was up, but my brain was not really up because I'm not really a morning person. I stay up very late. Okay, so that's looking good. It's got some colour behind them. I'm going to tone it all down with some white acrylic paint, but I think that this is going to be problematic. So we might just put some collage in there and a little bit in there so that the background is all around about a similar value. So we might just find a little bit of, this little piece of ledge is good here, isn't it? So let's tear some of that off. Yes, so we had a sprightly walk this morning to school. We don't live very far from school. It's about half a kilometre walk. So it's a nice walk, but I prefer to be awake for it, to be honest. So then, after I took them to school, I walked back and I called into the supermarket on the way back. Came home and climbed back into bed, made myself a cup of tea and had some brekkie in bed, and then had a slow start. And now it's 1 p.m. and I'm just getting started. So the day's almost gone. I've got to pick them up from school at 3. So I've kind of had a relaxing day again. All right, that's looking good. I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to let that dry really well. You can see that I haven't covered in these bits because the ladies are going to cover them anyway, so it would be wasted material. But like I said, I'm going to let that dry. I don't want to hit it with my heat tool because it might bubble. So what I'll do is I will let it dry for a little bit. When it's tacky, I'll put it under the mat so that it dries really flat, and I'll come back to you. So I'll see you maybe in an hour or 2. Okay, welcome back. It's now 2.5 hours later and it's dry, and I've picked up the kids from school, and we'll do a little bit of acrylic paint on the background just to pull it back a bit. And I've got a dry brush, so I'm just going to put a bit of dry brushing on and pull back some of that information, especially some of this darker information here. All right, let's see if that works a little bit better. Where's our ladies? Ah, yes, that's pretty good. All right, I'll dry that off And we'll put a little bit of colour paint. You can see I've got a little bit of coloured acrylic mixed up. So I'm just going to put a little bit of that on, and then we might hit it with a little bit more white, because the acrylic going back onto the acrylic when it's dry will grab a bit more, which will be good. So I will dry that off. So now I'm going to put some bits of colour on that are in 3 spots. So I'm going to put a hit of colour up here, a bit of a colour down here, and a bit of colour down here. And that's just to create a triangle, but also it's going to make these colours that are in the background look like they've got some sort of context. So let's mix up some colour. And I've got out some cheap acrylic paint from Montmartre and Jassart, and I've got yellow ochre, crimson and pink, and then just white. And I've squeezed out a little bit. We might need a little bit more white. And I'm just going to mix up a few bits of colour in a few different shades of pink and apricot and maybe like an orangey colour. So I've got a few colours mixed there, and I'm just going to brush on. And I think I need a bit more pink in that one. And my brush is dry. I'm not talking very much, am I? I'm just enjoying the colour blocking. All right, let's have a quick hover. Let's see how we're going now. Ah, yes, that's looking okay. I'm happy with that. And I'm going to dry that off, and then I'm just going to come back through with a little bit of white acrylic and put a few highlights into it, and then we'll be done with that. So it's tacky, it's not completely dry, but I'm coming back with my dry white brush, and I'm just going to brush on a little bit more white just to add a few highlights. Now the last thing I want to do, just in my white paint here, I'm just going to dip in my gift card, put a few crosshairs. Oh yes, that looks good, doesn't it? Okay, so I'm not going to play with that too much more. I'm going to now let that dry. I'm not even going to do it with my heat gun. I'm just going to let that dry for a little bit, and we'll come back and we're going to do a little bit of stamping next. I'll see you in a little bit. Okay, so we're dry. I think there's a few spots that might be a little bit wet still, and you can see that I have put on a few white splatters while I had the paint out. I just loosened it up with a bit of water and did some splatters and then let that dry. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of stamping. Now I have a couple of stamps here. I've got Poppy Crafts stamp 595, and it's got some invoices on it. And I've got another one out, and it's Poppy Crafts 618, and it's similar. It's got a few different invoicey sort of things. So I'm going to do a bit of stamping. Now I've pulled out my archival ink. I've got 3 colours. I've got Pebble Beach, I've got frayed burlap, and then I've got graphite black. And I want to have some of the stamping in the background so that it's not too dominant. We'll do Pebble Beach, and I'm just standing up. Yes, that's pretty good. Okay, So there you go. I've just done a little bit of background stamping in Pebble Beach, so it's in the background a little bit. And now we will step it up a bit, and I'll put a little bit more darkness into it. We'll start using a little bit of black because I want to use some butterflies and I want to use black ones. And our ladies here are in a grayscale, so I want to, make that relevant. And I'm just going to put 3 blocks of black. So we'll do it this way. And one here. Okay, that's pretty good. And let's clean up those stamps so we can go on to some other things. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a few numbers on and maybe a stamped circle or something like that. And I'm just going to do that in black archival. And you can see that I have just loosely laid on a little bit of washi here and there. And I'm just using some Tim Holtz numbers out of Eccentric and out of Tidbits. So I've done some background stamping and I've also done some foreground stamping with the black, and I'm going to let that dry, and then we're going to do a little bit of texture paste just to pull that black back a little tiny bit, just in a few spots. And then I'm going to glue down my ladies and all of the extra bits and tell you about the story. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a little bit of washi on, and I'm actually going to glue that on with glue stick, and just to go around the perimeter a little bit. I'll just run a little bit up here just to help with that perimeter. And I've got a run for here as well. I may just pull in a little bit behind the ladies, coming out from the ladies a little bit, so a little bit going in another direction. And now I'm going to just put on some texture paste, so let me grab that. And we may put a little bit of washi on down the track, but let's just see how we go with this. I want a little bit of texture paste up here with some letters on. And I'm using a stencil from Stamperia. Okay, I'm going to let that dry now. And then we're going to put on our ladies, and we're going to put on some butterflies, and I'm going to tell you the story. Okay, let's have a little look at where we're at. Now that texture paste has dried and the background's very busy. It is going to get covered up a bit because I've got some butterflies to go on. Now some of you might be thinking, why the butterflies, Annie, and what's the secret? So let's talk about the secret. The secret is Chinese whispers. My story about these ladies is that they work in a department store and they have heard a little bit of gossip. Now, Chinese whispers is that game that you play with 5 or 6 different people, and you start with a message and you whisper it to one person, and then that person whispers it to the next person, and so on till you get to the last person, and then they reveal what the secret is. And the whole point is to see how accurate it is. So I've come up with a little Chinese whisper that would be relevant to our ladies here that are working in a department store. The first person says, I heard it's right, we're getting a pay rise next week. And they tell somebody, and then that person tells the next person, and they say, I heard that we might be getting better pay by next week. Then they whisper it to the next person. It says, I heard that we might be getting butter pie next week. And the next one passes on this message. I heard that tonight we'll get butter pie as a treat. And then the last one says, I heard that tonight there'll be butterflies in the street. So the story is completely different from a pay rise to butterflies in the street. So let's put our secret on as if these two are at the end and they're talking about the butterflies. So I have a speech bubble for this one that says, I heard that tonight there will be butterflies in the street. So I've got all of these little messages that are working their way down to our ladies because they've been said by different people in the workroom, and the Chinese whispers is all over the place. So that's pretty fun. Now, I want to put some butterflies on. So the butterflies will pull back that black a little bit because I'm not overly thrilled with the black, to be honest. Now the butterflies I'm using all in Create, and they're number 30. So let's pull out a few white and black ones. You can see that I've put some colour on a few of them. And I just want to group a few butterflies around. Or we might put one on her elbow. All right, let's stick a few things down. Actually, we'll start by gluing these butterflies up here. And I'm going to use some art glitter glue, so let's do that. I'm just going to glue a few other ones down the page. And I might not glue the whole thing down. I might just leave their wings sticking up a little bit. So let's glue our ladies on. We'll put some glue on the back of them. So, all right, so now we've got the ladies and the butterflies stuck down. Let's put the speech bubble on and the Chinese whispers. Okay, that's looking good. I'll clear the decks and then we'll come back and we'll do a little bit of penwork and a little bit of shadows. So let's do that. Okay, let's put a little bit of penwork on. Now I'm just going to put some penwork around our whispers. Okay, now let's put on a little bit of shadow. So I'm just putting a little bit of watercolor around pencil so that I can drop a few shadows around and hit that with some water just to ground those ladies, just to bed them in. So I think that I will just do a few, just a very, very few white splatters just so that they sink into the background, and then we'll mount it in my journal. Okay, so here we go. Here's my big journal. Now I don't know whether any of you remember, but I think back in around about February, something like that, I picked up this photo album from a thrift haul. And it's in one of my thrift hauls that is on the channel. And I said in the video that I wanted to use it as a mixed media journal. So here we go. Here's our first artwork, and I will glue this in off camera. And I'll probably put some line work around it and sign it and put a date on it and all that sort of thing. And then when I get this journal out again, I will show it to you. But here's our finished mixed media project for today. And I'm happy with how it turned out. I'm probably a little bit disappointed with how heavy the black was. I ummed and ahed about doing that, you know. I almost didn't do it. And I thought, oh, it might be a bit heavy, and I think that it is. So lesson learned, I think that it's a little bit busy in the background because of the black. I think that if I just stuck to the Pebble Beach and just done a little bit of line work on it, it would have been enough. But that's okay. It's an original and the story's wonderful. So here we go. Here's these two ladies. They work in a department store And there's been a Chinese whisper that has gone around the store. The first whisper was, "I heard it's right, we're getting a pay rise next week." The next whisper was, "I heard that we might be getting better pay next week." Then the next whisper came along and it was, "I heard that we might be getting butter pie next week." And then the next whisper was, "I heard that tonight we'll be getting butter pie as a treat." And then the last one, where this lady is telling her friend, "I heard that tonight there'll be butterflies on the street." And here's all the butterflies on the street. So there we go. There's our mixed media project for today. I hope you enjoyed that. I know that the video was a little bit disjointed, but hopefully I've managed to pull it together in the editing process. I did have to do a few drop-off and pickups in between and wait for things to dry, but it was fun. I enjoyed the project and I really enjoyed playing, but most of all I enjoyed the story. So if you liked me doing a mixed media project for a bit of a change, give it a thumbs up. That would be wonderful. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, think about subscribing and let me know in the comments what you think about our Chinese Whispers story today. All right, that's all from me today. I hope you have a fantastic weekend and have an opportunity to create something fun and new. And I will see you again next week with another project. Thanks for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. See you soon.